Bill Robinson, a master Dulcimer musician, is a local treasure. When he donated a hammered dulcimer to the Fox Valley Music Foundation, we wanted to learn more about his music and the generous donation that is on display at the venue in Aurora. First, we spoke with Karen Christensen from the foundation.
Bill is a world-renowned hammered dulcimer player, and he lives in St. Charles. And his willingness to donate a restored, essentially antique hammered dulcimer to the foundation was really wonderful. It is very much in alignment with our mission to preserve, protect, promote, and educate people about the music of the Fox Valley region. And sometimes people think that we're just focused on blues, but that in fact is not the case. We're really trying to hit all those objectives for every type of music that there is. And oftentimes, what is kind of left out of the conversation about music is traditional music and traditional American instruments. The hammered dulcimer, first of all, it's beautiful. It's in a lovely cabinet, and I'm not exactly sure how Bill came to acquire it, but he did a very wonderful restoration of it, and it's actually the foundational piece for our museum. One of the goals for the Music Foundation and for the venue is that we will have a museum in the building, and we've accumulated a lot of hand-me-down and cast-off instruments, but nothing of the quality or the seriousness of the hammered dulcimer.
I asked Karen about the foundation's connection to Bill and his connection to the Fox Valley area.
Sure, we actually met Bill through a local resident named Nancy Hopp, who's very involved in the arts. She's a big fan of Bill's and had collected a lot of his CDs, and she was aware of him because she has seen him perform at the Fox Valley Folklore Society storytelling and music festival that takes place in Geneva every Labor Day weekend, and then also at the Gebhard Woods Traditional Music Festival that takes place in Morris in June every year. So Nancy had seen him, and I think because she was a big fan and had this personal relationship with him, she connected him with us. She knew that we were interested in preserving traditional music and also in showcasing instruments. And so that's how we came to have the donation.
Bill's donation introduced us to his music, and I wanted to know more. Born into a musical family in West Central Illinois, he started playing a variety of instruments as a toddler.
Music has always been a big part of our lives. In fact, I've seen such a change. I remember when my dad was still farming with a team of horses, and we didn't have electricity, and back then when you were in the farming community, you made your own entertainment, and our major form of entertainment was playing music. So we would pretty much everybody taught orally, and we didn't read music, but we would pass that music on. And so the music I play today, even I compose a lot of tunes, but it still has that same flavor of music that I was taught when I was a child.
I asked Bill about when he first moved to the Fox Valley and how the area influenced his music.
Well, we came up in 1977, 1978 area. In fact, I was involved in Caterpillar at that time, and I brought one of the product lines to a machine shop up here, and I helped set it up. And of course, music has always been a big portion of my life. I feel like I've had 2 or 3 different lives, but I always incorporated music. And first thing I did once I was working in the shop, when I had spare time, I started meeting musicians from the area here, and I actually found several. A lot of times good musicians, you have to pull them out of the woodwork. And I did. I met several nice musicians around here, and In fact, Joe Alban with the Fox Valley Folk Festival was one of my main contacts, and he set me up with several other people. And so when I wasn't working, I was playing music. And so what you find is you can play the same tune in a different area, and they may play it differently, but it still will all blend together. And the Fox Valley area, there are so many good musicians in this area that settle here, and a lot of people don't even know that they still play.
The Fox Valley has inspired several of Bill's songs, and I knew there must be a story behind the title song to Bill's album, Strolling by the Fox.
Well, this happened to be the Fox Valley Folk Festival in Geneva. We played there. Actually, I played there ever since I've been in the area, and it's such a beautiful park. And the festival goes on once a year, and it's so wonderful to be involved in it and meet all these people. And of course, the bike trail comes through, so we set up the tent, and we'll set up the Dulcimers and we'll play. And Katie's been involved in it very much, and we just. Something inspires me, and I'll come up with this melody, and then I thought, this was right here on the Fox Valley, right in the Island Park, and so I thought, well, we'll just name this tune "Strolling by the Fox," because there were so many people strolling through, and it's just such a wonderful time.
Strolling by the Fox by Bill Robinson, along with guitarist Greg Ferguson and Katie Moritz, accompanying Bill on her dulcimer. I asked Katie how she met Bill.
I first saw Bill when I was probably a teenager, and I was really interested in the hammered dulcimer. I'd seen it at farmers markets and stuff, and so there's a festival in Morris, Illinois that Bill plays at every year, and since I was from Joliet, I would go to it every year and just watch all of the people play the hammered dulcimer, and I always really liked watching Bill's workshops. I didn't have an instrument yet, but I would go and watch his workshops and watch him jam with his band and other people who would join him, and so I knew that I wanted to learn from him since he was in the area. And many festivals. At that festival, there's always teachers and people that come from all over the United States, but it was, my favorite person happened to live right here. So when I did finally get an instrument, and I happened to change jobs and I was working probably 5 minutes from where Bill lives, I finally gave him a call.
Katie continued with her perspective on the Illinois sound of the hammered dulcimer.
I have found when I travel and go places that when you're here in Illinois, you hear different people playing and you kind of can tell if it was somebody who was trained by Bill or if it was, anybody else. But when you go other places and you hear somebody playing a little bit more like Bill, a lot of other places will say, oh, that's an Illinois style, because his style is more powerful in a certain way that people associate it with all of Northern Illinois.
And what are Katie's musical inspirations?
The Fox Valley area has inspired my music because when I first started learning the dulcimer, it was because I had gotten a job in St. Charles, and that was my introduction to this area. I'm from Joliet, but I was really close to Bill and I wanted to learn how to play, and I thought I would give him a call. And so really, I would say my association with Bill is what introduced me to just this area as a whole, and I found that it's very diverse, and so there's a lot of appreciation because it's so close to all the farm country, and it's also close to all of this urban development, that you kind of get a good mixture of appreciation, not only for the old time and the traditional music, but also for more contemporary stuff.
Katie learned the hammered dulcimer from Bill, and now she passes on the tradition to her own students. Her musicianship has won her awards and recognition, and in 2011, Katie made a documentary about Bill, carrying on the tradition. Bill Robinson's family tree has many branches and deep roots.
My dad played the dulcimer, and my grandmother before him. My grandfather was a little country church minister, and my grandmother, she played the dulcimer in there because there was no organ or piano to play. So that's how that started. And then in later years, I found out that my grandfather's sisters also played dulcimer. So I actually have it coming at me two different ways. But my dad, there was 5 boys in the family, and they all played different musical instruments, stringed instruments, and they were performing all over the place. And then, of course, each of the families had kids, and so on Sundays after church, we would either go to one of the other's homes, and we would spend the afternoons and evenings playing music and just sharing. And in fact, I have a first cousin that plays with me now, and we've reconnected after retirement. But he told me one day, he said, "You used to make me so mad when we were kids." He said, we wanted you to come out and play ball with us, and said, all you want to do is sit in there with our dads and play music. And he said, now I wish I'd done that too.
Bill grew up in this family band. His oldest brother played fiddle, his older sister the piano and accordion. Another brother played guitar and banjo, and the younger sister dobro. Bill's first instrument was the ukulele, but he was drawn to his father's dulcimer, which was kept under the bed. Here, Bill tells a family story about that dulcimer.
My mom, she had an aunt that would come and stay. She'd come in the spring and stay usually a month or so with us. And she was a fine line. She was very religious, but, we kind of wanted to question a few things, But anyhow, when she would come and stay with us 3 boys, we shared the same bedroom. And so when she came, she got our bed. So we had to find out where else we could go. And of course, we would have breakfast that morning, and so her name was Aunt Elsie. And so we were waiting for her to come out, And she come out and she said, "Oh my," says, my days are limited. You know, I heard the Hearts of Heaven last night. That was the most beautiful music I ever heard. You know, I know the good Lord's coming to take me away, take me home." And of course, we kind of looked at her and we thought, "Boy, is she losing it, or what's going on here?" And so anyhow, all kinds of conversations went on. So the next morning, we were sitting there waiting for her, and out comes out Aunt Elsie. She said, "I know my days are limited, you know. I heard the Hearts of Heaven again. That was the most beautiful music I ever heard. I know the good Lord's coming to get me." And of course, we just all rolled our eyes back and thought, we know she's lost it, you know. Well, that afternoon, we were going to all play some music, and so Dad goes in underneath our bed and he pulls out the Dulcimer. And here's the old Dulcimer, and it's got dust on the soundboard, and you can see these little tracks going across that soundboard. And over in the corner, there happened to be a mouse hole. So that little mouse was going through, and his tail must have been hitting those strings. So we call that the Harps of Heaven.
These days, Bill's performances are often billed as Bill Robinson and Friends. One of those friends is Greg Ferguson, who told me how they met.
Well, I worked at Caterpillar for 44 years, 42, and then went back to work for another 2 years. And but I had a boss that I was playing in a country band with some very good friends of mine, and we were doing a lot of big shows, opening acts, and a lot of shows, Taste of Chicago, Rib Fest in Naperville, a lot of big shows. And my boss came up to me one day, I got to introduce you to this friend of mine. He plays some weird instrument, and I kind of blew it off. I didn't know what he was talking about, and he couldn't even remember the name of the instrument. And so one day he went back to Peoria, and wasn't my boss any longer. And he went back to Peoria and called me up one day, and he said, "Hey," he said, "I've built a picture for this buddy of mine that plays that weird instrument I've been telling you about." He said, "Why don't you come with me? We're going to go deliver it." And I said, "Well, I got to work." And he said, "No, you can take a vacation day." He said, "Just take a vacation day and come with me." So we came up to North Aurora and went to where Bill was working, and he gave us a little tour of the shop and et cetera. And then we went to lunch, and he never went back to work. We went to his house and we started playing music, and it hasn't been the same since. We started playing shows before I knew anything about this music that he was playing, and trying to learn songs on the fly on stage in front of people, and that was a little difficult, but I got it. We've been playing together now for 20 plus years, and it's always fun, always a good time.
I asked Greg about his musical connections.
Musical backgrounds probably started with my dad. He played guitar a little bit, and it started with pretty much country music. I grew up playing acoustic guitar, country music. My dad taught me a little bit, but Grandpa here has taught me a whole lot more over the years. I just started pretty much playing country when I was very young. And then I started getting into wooden music, like artists like the Eagles and Crosby, Stills and Nash, etc., that had very good, very pronounced vocals. I like to sing, but the roots go back to a lot of the old Hank Williams songs. I really like some of that stuff, and so he really was a country Shakespeare, I guess.
Another fellow performer friend of Bill's, Katie, shared some of her musical background and interests.
I started out in music as a little kid. I took piano lessons, and then when I was old enough to join the band at school, I played the tuba for all of my schooling. And I was always really interested in folk music, and mostly traditional Irish music was kind of what I was really interested in as a kid. So I played the penny whistle, but I was just interested in pretty much anything that made noise, and the hammered dulcimer was such an interesting thing in general. And so I decided to, when I graduated high school and kind of stopped playing the big heavy tuba, I decided to play a big heavy dulcimer.
In the 1960s, Bill frequently played at the Illinois Country Opry in Petersburg alongside national stars who quickly recognized his talent and invited him to play in Nashville. He shared the Opryland stage with a host of stars, including Bill Monroe, Charlie Walker, and Roy Acuff, who became Bill's mentor and who tried to get Bill to work with him on a regular basis. Acuff did manage to convince Bill to go to RCA to score a recording contract. The RCA president at the time was Chet Atkins. Bill remembers this experience.
I went right up there and I said, okay, I'd like to talk to Chet Atkins. Well, the receptionist, she gave me every excuse, and he was usually always out to lunch. Of course, it might be 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, or it might be 5 or 6 in the evening, But anyhow, I went, I don't know how many days I kept going there. And Roy said, just go up there. He'll see you, be persistent. So, okay. And so I kept going back. And so this particular day, the gal, of course, she got to know me real well. And I knew that she kept trying to get me out of there. And so I assumed that there was probably somebody coming in to take care of some business. And of course, the gentleman came in and he sat down beside me, and I said, "Oh, I'm just going to wait." And so he was curious about the instrument. He said, "Well, what's it sound like?" I said, "Can you play me something?" So anyway, of course, the gal, she said, well, Chet was gone. He was out of town, or out someplace, but, wasn't anywhere around. But anyway, I started playing a little bit, and I looked up, and guess who came out of the back room? Chet Atkins himself. And so, anyway, I still didn't get the contract, but but we did spend a pretty good afternoon just talking. And then later on, as time went by, he played a program at Galesburg, Illinois, and I had the opportunity to open before him, and he remembered who I was.
Roy Acuff asked Bill to build a dulcimer for him. This was another creative project for Bill, who talks about how he started making dulcimers, until he became allergic to raw wood.
I had a student at that time, he was a home designer, Ken Harris from St. Charles, and he was taking lessons from me, and he said, my son has a lot of interest in this instrument. He says, I'd like to build him one. And I said, well, if you want to build him one, I'll be happy to show you. He said, do you have any designs or anything? I said, I do up here. And so I said, I'll be glad to help you do it in any way I can, but I said, I won't work in the wood shop with you. So anyhow, he started building, and so we ended up going through the Illinois Arts Council as a master apprentice program, teaching him to build dulcimers. And then, of course, I was also involved with teaching, so I would teach different students through the Illinois Arts Council. And so it was quite a connection there. And so Ken he would build the instrument itself. Once the wood was sealed up, then I would take the instrument, I'd put the hardware on, string it, and get it all set up. So, but we ended up building quite a few instruments, and they're kind of spread all over the country here.
Bill's music encompasses many genres. Some may call it folk or country or old-timey traditional, but it also has a bluegrass following. Bill played Opryland with Bill Monroe and also performed at Monroe's Bluegrass Festival in Bean Blossom, Indiana, where at least one audience member seemed to have a narrow view of the bluegrass genre.
And so when I would play the Dulcimer, it's like I end up with a bigger crowd around me because they were curious because of the sound, because if they wanted to listen to other bands, they would. But I end up with these people coming around. So I had a guy come up to me and said, well, that's not a bluegrass instrument. And I said, well, then I guess why would the father of bluegrass music come to me and ask me if I'd come up and play on stage? so that is the only time I ran into a situation where someone said, well, that's not that. Well, I've been around Hawaiian people, jazz players. In fact, my son-in-law at the time he told my daughter, says, your dad didn't know, but he played Led Zeppelin last night. so yeah, it's wide open. You can do whatever the style. The Dulcimer is a forerunner of the piano and the harpsichord. So if you can, whatever type of music you play on those instruments, you can play the very same thing on the Dulcimer.
And what about the blues? Here's another song of Bill's that gets lots of audience requests, the St. Charles Dulcimer Blues. Bill has sparked an interest in the hammered dulcimer in many different people who want to learn it for themselves. With decades of teaching experience, Bill knows how to work with all ages and learning styles.
When someone comes for lessons, I have to learn how they absorb it how they want to, how they can pick it up. And so it takes someone coming the first time. I try to key in on what are they thinking, what can they handle first. So what I'll do is I'll play different styles. So I may teach the same tune to 5 different people, but I may play it 5 different ways.
Along with teaching, Bill developed a tune book of his compositions that Katie helped to compile.
I think the first songbook that Bill did, we put that together in 2009. So it's been 10 years since I first started to transcribe a lot of his music. And I started out with pretty much all of the music that he'd done before 2009. And so now, ever since then, when he comes up with a new tune, it's been a little bit of trial and error over the years of figuring out how to transcribe it, because sometimes he'll write it on the piano and then he'll bring it to me and I'll transcribe it, and then he'll play it on the dulcimer and it's a little bit different, and then he has another month to sit with it and play around with it, and then he takes it to a festival with the sheet music that I transcribed from a piano piece 2 months ago. And all the people at the festival are, they learn this and they say, this music isn't anything like what you just showed us. So now we've kind of got it. The process is a little bit more streamlined to, once he's got it on the dulcimer, give him some time and then I'll transcribe it.
Bill and Katie are working on a second edition of the tune book with over 20 songs that can be played not only on the dulcimer, but also on piano, fiddle, and other instruments. Instructional videos and CDs are also available on Bill's website. Over the years, Bill has received numerous awards and grants.
Guys, of course, I've been inducted in the Fox Valley Arts Hall of Fame. I've been a lifetime member and achievement for the Gebhardt Woods Dulcimer Festival. Same way with the original Dulcimer Players Club in Michigan. We had the opportunity to go, the Illinois Country Music Association. I've been a member there for years and received numerous awards from them. Even, in fact, they considered a Pioneer Award. Of course, I don't tell him that, But anyhow, we went down to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and we competed with the North American Country Music Association International. And we went there 2 years, was it? And
3 years.
Okay. And we took first place in the bluegrass category. And then they presented me with the Little Jimmy Dempsey Award with the most outstanding instrumentalist.
Greg has been performing with Bill for many years and wrote the lyrics to Oh Baby Oh, a song about Bill's great-granddaughter. I asked him about his current projects.
Just re-retired from Caterpillar again. I was performing with 2 other friends of mine that were performing probably too much because I was tied up so much that playing on weekends every weekend, and it just gets to be too much. So I've been writing a little more at home, and I actually wrote, recorded, produced a CD of songs I wrote about Caterpillar. Then the 3rd generation, my father worked at Caterpillar, my grandfather worked there, and so I wrote and recorded and produced a CD of Caterpillar songs that we still perform, and it never fails. There's always somebody in the crowd. We were playing in Texas one time, and somebody came up and had done a Caterpillar song. And I always had, there's stories about every song you write, no matter what. There's a story behind it, and so I'd tell a story about the song and then perform it. And I remember one night we were playing at a festival in Texas, and I'd done a Caterpillar song. And when we got done, we were selling some CDs, and a guy came up and said that his family worked. Either his dad or he had somebody in his family that worked at Caterpillar, but that never fails. Usually, when we're playing somewhere, if I do a Caterpillar song and tell a story about one of those songs, somebody will come up and say they had a connection to Caterpillar, and I'm pretty partial to those big yellow machines, so.
And Katie talked about her current endeavors.
Well, I play the dulcimer pretty regularly, just at home if nothing else. But I teach. I have private students now at my house as well, and I teach at festivals and perform. And I've been in for over 10 years now the community band at Wabanzi. We play steel pan, so it's a steel band ensemble. We do Caribbean music and do that pretty much regularly as well. So.
There's a special Christmas tradition that Bill, Greg, and Katie share with the Fox Valley area every year.
We start out during the Christmas holidays. We like to take one day, and we'll start in Aurora, and we take restaurants, and we'll sit down, and we don't sing Christmas carols, but we carol with the Dulcimers. Dulcimer and guitar, and we'll play for like 45 minutes of set, and of course sometimes they'll feed us, sometimes but
Once they kick us out,
yeah.
oh, you can't do that in here.
They kicked me and Bill out once too.
But anyway, the people, they'll have Christmas music maybe playing over the speaker system, but once we start playing, then they cut it down, and some of them will come up and request tunes, and we always like that if the little kids will come up and we'll have them play like Jingle Bells or something like that. But we'll move on then from Nickery's Restaurant to Harner's, and of course over Harner's, and they present us with these nice cakes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
They're
That's
really
what
wonderful, but we play there, and then we'll go on up the river, and we'll stop at Looms, and a lot of times we'll have lunch there, and but we play. Then we go over to Delnor to the Wellness Center, and they always have a group of daycare children, and so we'll sit in front of the Christmas trees, and then they need to take their turn, come up, and we'll have them go and get in front of us, and we'll get the hammers in their hands, and we're trying to recruit as many new students as we can, try to keep this Dulcimer living, and but then we go up to the Park District in St. Charles, and we played at the senior residence up there.
I wanted to hear what Katie had to say about sharing the stage with Bill.
Performing with Bill there's never a dull moment. I think it's always fun, but you gotta be on your toes because he'll change things up, or he'll, switch out a song here and there, or decide on the spot that he wants to play something different, maybe something that you haven't played in a very long time, but it just came to him and felt right, and so you're always gotta listen and pay attention and make sure that you can keep up. Because he'll start playing real fast too sometimes. And I always, whenever we're playing together, a lot of times Greg is there, and I kind of just watch Greg and watch his hands. Okay, that's how fast I need to be going, because it's hard when you're playing to be able to hear everything, and so you just have to be paying attention to all of it and keeping your ears open.
When Bill and his friends play, people gather round, curious about this odd-looking and unique-sounding instrument. Older folks may recognize a tune they associate with their childhoods. Bill, with his generous spirit and affinity for the music, welcomes listeners and potential musicians of all ages.
To get the little kids.
Oh, yeah.
They'll come in, and they could be anywhere from 3 or 4 years old to however old, but they'll come up and they'll look at that thing, and of course, we play this. My grandmother, she had flexible hammers, and what they are, they're Corsa staves. And she made the hammers out of them, and so I've kept that up, and so, we would be sitting there playing, and those kids, I like that guy, Some of them, they can't wait to get them in their hands so they can really go, but normally Yeah, I'll have them come in front of me and I'll have them hold the hammers and I'll hold their hands. And I said, we'll just take a simple little thing, Mary had a little lamb, boil them cabbages down or anything like that. And I mean, when they're doing it, they're just as intent as could be. And then when we're done, they turn around and give you that big smile. That's the best pay you could ever have.